Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good, let's be better. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. Today, I have one of the biggest characters I've ever met. He's a great guy, Dan Waldschmidt. I don't know if you've heard of Dan or not. You probably have if you read business magazines or even books on business. Dan is, he's the CEO of a company called EDGY, and he works with other CEOs, business owners on helping them up their game, get to the next level, and have breakthrough strategies. Dan is also an ultra runner, and I think, I haven't verified this, but at least Dan says he's the 9th person to ever run up Mount Everest, the 9th human to ever run up Mount Everest. So he's a badass, and he is, God knows what he's gonna say, what we'll come up with together. But today our topic is mistakes that salespeople make, which is one of my favorite topics. Hey, Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, bro.
You're absolutely welcome. So, what are you doing these days?
So today I'm actually in the airport as I talk to you.
Are you? Where are you headed?
So I'm in Newark, heading to a logistic company about 45 minutes away here in New Jersey. So
okay, cool.
Kick ass, and take names.
Good. So tell me, when you're going to this logistics company, I don't need too much detail, but what are you doing when you go there?
Well, look, anytime someone calls us, they're stuck. And what that means, whether they want to admit it or not, is that they've exhausted kind of all the options that they know of or that they're willing to do, and they need someone on the outside to come in and shine a light on the path towards greatness. And that's essentially what we do. I mean, you could put fancy intellectual Harvard Business Review labels on it, but to be honest with you, like, we help people get, unstuck.
How did you learn how to do that?
Dude, I don't even know that I have learned it. To be candid with you, I'm shocked I've made money. I'm shocked anybody pays me money. I don't even know what I'm doing most days. But I think, honestly, I've been on this journey since, I started my first sales job at 19 years old. I mean, actually, my first sales job probably was at 12 or 13 when I started my first business mowing lawns, where I learned it. But I've been on this journey of what does it take to be awesome? And that's led me down this path of where's my head at? What are my actions like? What am I learning? How am I growing? Who do I need to be as a person, as an athlete, so that I can achieve that next level? And that's taken me down this journey where now I'm able to share those lessons with other people and help them make, I think at last total, $19 billion in new revenue. So it's working for some people.
No BS sales team. Did you hear that? $19 billion in new revenue. The guy is amazing. And I got to tell you, I'm going to tell the story. When I first heard about you, Dan, it was on Twitter. And I watched you, and you had your AVI, your picture on Twitter. You had your mouth wide open like you were screaming. And I watched your post, and I was like, God, what an asshole. And it's funny because what I watched, right? And then I asked people, you lived in Greenville, South Carolina, and I asked people, they said, he's a great guy, he's really smart. And then you actually started working at one of my clients, and I met you, and it's funny because I walked in to come meet you, and there was this giant African spear holding the door open of the room into the sales, where the sales team were. And I said, oh shit, that's really true. The legend is giant. And it's funny, another thing that I had, there's a book called Steal the Show by Michael Port. And I'm reading that book, and you are written about in that book as one of the greatest marketers and getting meetings. So there's a lot here. Tell us about the thing with the spear. And maybe you do or don't do that anymore, but that's really fascinating to me.
So one of the things I think it's you need to get clear on, and the spear is illustrative of this. It's an example. Is that if you have a goal, this is sales related, athletic related, business, politics, math, sports, science, whatever you're into, maybe you're trying to get a date, I don't know, whatever your goal is, I think one of the big mistakes that we make as humans, as executives, as people, as salespeople, is we don't take it seriously enough. I mean, we're kind of like, well, I got this goal, but hey, look, if it doesn't work out, we're going to pray about it. We're going to go back at it, and it's going to be okay. And that's just not how fucking life is. If
Right.
you want a goal, if you want to achieve it, then you have to put it all on the line. In days of old where your life was threatened, by saber-toothed tigers first, and then it was by, in the old days, if you wanted something, you grabbed a sword and a bunch of dudes with you, and you went out and took it. You took land.
Yeah, absolutely.
You burned everything to the ground. It was ruthless. and I'm not saying we go back to those days. And look, I'm evolved and enlightened. I don't think you treat people disrespectfully. But I think when it comes to goals, we have warped images of what it takes to achieve greatness. And so when I use illustrations like a spear to hold the door open, it shows people that we are at war against everything inside us and outside us that stops us from getting to where we want to be. All of it has to go if we're going to get to where we want to be. In fact, when I first hired my sales teams early on, we would have this ceremony where we would give them all these hand-engraved swords, and they were mounted in their office in different places. Like, this was a whole ceremony, and then when they left us, we made them give them back. And Walker, sometimes people were in tears, and I said, look, some of them were even leveling up to go to another company, getting executive jobs, taking that next leap in their career, and they were like, man, this has meant the world to me. And I'm like, and you mean the world to me, but you're not on the team anymore, right? It's time for you. And that man, that got people really thinking about what it is to go to war.
It really does. The story I read in Michael Port's book was that you would scan the Wall Street Journal or wherever else and look for companies that had their stock price beaten up, or something had just happened that caused their value to go down, and that you would FedEx this giant 6 or 8 foot African spear to them and said something in the note like, "Business is war. Call me or let's have a conversation if you're ready to win." Am I close?
A little something like that. Yeah. And what's funny is that we'd send it to female executives, send it to male executives, and it was interesting, the response. People, some people chuckled. I think universally we got a response from everybody. There may have been, obviously not all of them hired us, but universally people would smile, and some would say, look, I still have it. It's over there in the corner of my office, reminding me.
That's really, really great. So we were talking about salespeople and mistakes they make. And you're a big one in your book, Edgy Conversations, which I recommend. What you talk about a lot is the head trash, the crap between our ears that holds us back. Tell me how that plays into a sales career.
No, 100%. You are what you think about most. Tony Robbins says where your attention goes, your energy flows. Right? He gets kind of a nice spin on rhyming words, but the truth is, what you think about most, you become. And so if you think about, if you're thinking about, how someone's screwing you over, or no one's fucking answering the phone, this is BS, and I'm all upset about this.
Yep.
If you're thinking in negative thoughts, if you're thinking selfish thoughts, self-serving thoughts, then you're only going to rise to the level of that. By the way, one of the reasons why I don't like this whole sales hacker economy, everyone's a hacker, we're sales hackers, sales hacking, is that's very short-sighted, right? We'll talk about one of the mistakes people make is playing the short game instead of playing the long game. But what you think about ultimately, you become. I struggled with this for years, despite how other people see me. It sounds ridiculous, but I don't see myself that way. I always see myself as not meeting the mark, and it's taken me. I'm 40, and I'm starting to figure out how to celebrate myself. I'm starting to figure out how to just enjoy life instead of chasing the next goal, right? Instead of just beating myself up that I was not 1,000% a quota. And so small things. I started putting little messages on my phone. I mean, for most of us, a sticky note on your mirror, you might only see twice a day, but you bet you pick up your phone. Bet you pick up your phone about 100 times a day. Bet you turn on the screen on your phone 100 times. What if you put a message on your phone that was inspirational? I have 6 words on my phone screen, right? It says, be honest, ask questions, do things that matter. Be honest, ask questions, do things that matter. That's the rule book for where I need to be where I need to get my head at, right? And so everything you do does not happen because you do it. It happens because you first thought about it, okay? So think about that for one hot second. That activity that you did as a salesperson, right? It didn't happen by accident. It was a result of a thought or a subconscious habit that's already ingrained via thoughts, right? So if you want to change the activity, sure, you can try to willpower your way to changing your activity. That doesn't work. It's like being on a diet. So most diets don't work. To change, you must first change your thoughts.
I think you're absolutely right. And most people, I get people tell me all the time, I just need more discipline. And the reality is they're 100% disciplined right now to do exactly what they've already been doing. And they do the same damn thing every day. They even wash themselves in the shower exactly the same way, starting in the same place that they do every single day. And so it's interesting to change the behavior is hard because you have to change your disciplines, right? And get used to it.
I mean, and start small too, So I'm co-CEO of EDGY Inc. I've got a co-CEO along with me, like Salesforce. We've got 2 CEOs. And the reality is that takes a little bit of adjusting. And I remember my partner, she's magnificent. She thinks about the world differently than I do. She sold 3 companies for over $1 billion, very, very successful, a very powerful female. And I remember one day she was doing something and immediately in my stomach, I was triggered. And for, anyone listening, you know exactly what that means. You're like annoyed. And I thought, okay, Dan, you're annoyed. What if what she did is not, she's not interpreting it like you are, and what if it actually turns out to be a good thing? So it's a good thing I kept my mouth shut, because about 45 minutes after I was triggered, I realized what she was doing, and then I felt stupid because it was actually genius, and genius on a level that I had not even anticipated. And so had I done what most of us would do, right, which is like lash out, get angry, I would have not only, spoiled a relationship unnecessarily, but I would have missed out on the lesson. And so now when I see things that I go, man, that's ridiculous, I then have to remind myself, maybe they have a perspective you don't have. And then, of course, if you're in sales, well, how do I get that perspective? Maybe you ask questions. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, no, you're true. And just because we believe, I agree with you that in sales, the most important thing we can do is to find out our prospects' opinions about things. We need to learn what they think first before we jump in and try and convince them of something else. But it does take guts to be one asking questions and not just go ask the right questions like my boss told me 25 years ago, but know how to ask questions and how to draw the information out that you need to have, and not just data, but emotions and opinions, because I think that's the most important thing.
One of the mistakes people make is asking questions, is not asking questions, right? And by the way, we don't just do this in sales; we do this in all of our lives. Yep. Well, my wife calls me, "When are you coming home?" And I can tell in that tone of voice, it's like the trapdoor of trapdoors, right? I'm gonna fail no matter what. Unless I say I'm already home and I'm opening the garage door, I failed.
Yes.
And so the better question for me to ask back is, what do you need me to do? How can I help? What's going on?
Yeah.
Right?
When were you hoping to be home?
Exactly. Yeah. When do you need me? So this whole asking question thing, it's a big mistake. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing what you're doing, or if you're an expert. The older I get, the more I realize the power of just shutting up and asking questions. And when someone stops, you go, yeah, Cool. Tell me more. Or
Yep.
what makes you say that, right? That's our Sandler training from the early days, right?
Yep.
It's just, so when you said what you said earlier, I think you meant this, or did I understand you correctly?
Correct.
And just that whole thing of getting people to talk, even the most hardcore, grizzled, antagonistic person, when you ask 5 or 6 questions in a row, I've never had it where someone didn't start talking, start opening up, start sharing, and now you have the beginnings of what might be an opportunity.
One of the things that I was listening to a podcast the other day, Dan, and they talked about the average human being, their average human mind can process thoughts at about 1,250 words a minute. But somebody even who's a fast talker, maybe like you and me, can only talk between 90 and 110 words a minute. On any given point, if you ask somebody a single question, the most you'll get is about 8% of their thoughts on that issue. And so it's only with follow-up questions can you begin to determine what they really mean, what they really think, and help them do the same.
Well, and how many times have you answered a question and you're like, oh, shit, I probably gave it wrong. I probably gave an inaccurate or inelegant or inartful answer. If I could answer it again, I would say it this way,
Yes, or I might say what I'm thinking, but I realize there's more depth behind that. I don't want, so anyway, you're exactly right. What other kind of mistakes other than not asking questions and, not having the right mindset? What are some other mistakes you see salespeople making?
One of the largest mistakes is this inability to play the long game. I told someone yesterday, we were talking about a challenge, and I just looked at him and said, burn it all down. Burn it all down. They said, what do you mean? I said, you're playing a short game, and you have to be willing to let the entire world burn around you. Like, you have to be willing to lose your house. You have to be willing to whatever, lose your job in pursuit of what you want, right? In pursuit of your goal. Quite honestly, listen, the people who win are the people who play the long game. Amazon is crushing it. Literally, they are crushing every person and every business there is out there. But they went 16 years without making a profit. 16 years, right? Southwest Airlines went 16 quarters without making a profit. And now they've been profitable ever since, right? They're crushing all the other airlines when it comes to profitability. Look, you're not going to be able to figure it out quickly. And so what does that mean to play the long game? Well, let's just get right up in people's business. You need to save some money, right? You need to cut back on your bullshit expenses. Not drive a fancy car, not have a fancy phone, just live lean and mean so that you can go 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, 48 months without getting a fucking commission, right? Whatever it takes, right? And that's the truth. What happens is people, let's run this down. Let's talk about what happens when you don't do that, because we've all been there. You start panicking because you notice your bank account's getting low, and then you're like, well, what do I do? And then you're like, well, maybe I'll do a side hustle while I'm doing my main hustle. And then your main hustle fails and your side hustle makes you a little bit of money, but not enough to really get you to where you want to be. So now you're confused. Do I do the side hustle full-time or the full-time hustle side time? See, it gets all mishmashed together, and you end up losing momentum. So when you decide what you want to do, you don't have to do it forever. You have to do it for right now, right? And so whatever time period that is that you pick, you have to be all in. You have to plan for it to take 3 or 4 times longer than you expect, and you have to expect that you'll make 10% of the money that you think you're going to make, right? That's where winners emerge, is in that period of being able to outlast everyone else around them. You have to play the long game.
How do you do that? Because in one part of your mind, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but in one side, you're like, you got to, and I get it, you got to commit to this thing, and you also have to be. I'm also hearing nothing's going to stop me from reaching this goal. I'm going to make it happen no matter what. What happens if sometimes maybe you've made the wrong decision? What happens if what you have is a fail?
So I always say this. Your destiny doesn't change. The path you get there might.
Yes.
And usually always does, right? If as the older you get, the more you realize how it changes. So let's say your goal. Most people don't have a specific goal of, I want to create a company that sells printer cartridges to multinational companies and sell it for $14.3 billion. They're more like, I want a good job in a subject matter that I am passionate about, where I can make money that makes me feel unrestrained, right? That's generally, people are about feelings, not about the specifics.
Yes.
So if your destiny is that I want this lifestyle with this amount of money and this certain vacation patterns and this sort of family, then that's likely not to change, which is cool, right? People get divorced, people have fewer kids, have more kids.
Yeah.
But generally, that is what that is. That's what you're fighting for. Now, the job you pick, the path to making that revenue, you may sell printer ink, you may sell printers, you may sell IT, you may sell none, you may be an entrepreneur. But the question we should ask ourselves when we're pursuing these things, these pivots, is what if today was the day I was going to win and I didn't show up? This singular thought has been running through my head.
Wow.
I have a bit of an advantage. I studied 1,000 ordinary people who achieve success, and every single one of them said something like this: things got dark, things got really bad. I didn't think I was going to make it. Other people didn't think I was going to make it. And just about the time I was ready to throw in the towel, the sun came out. And it's not been perfect ever since, but that was the beginning of me getting to where I am now. So here's what I don't find. I don't find people talking about, it was so good 16 years ago when I quit. That was the beginning of greatness, was me giving up on this thing. Almost always people say, I regret that I gave up on that too quickly. I had that idea first, but I didn't have the guts to see it through. Someone else made the money. I had the vision, but I didn't have the financial wherewithal, and so someone else got the glory. Almost in all cases, it's not about someone saying, I wish I would have given up sooner. I wish I would have pivoted sooner. It's almost always universally that I wish I would have stuck it out. And so that's why I challenge people is, look, you can always quit. Just do it tomorrow, right? If you got to quit, it's fine.
Today.
Do it.
Give it your all today. Yeah. Right.
Give it your all today. And then, look, you may have to do that again tomorrow. And then do that again tomorrow. I think that's a little bit why I do this crazy running stuff. I mean, I did a race a few days ago. A buddy of mine was running through the mountains of Alabama, and he said, hey, would you crew for me? I said, sure. So I ended up running 55 miles of the 100 miles with him. And it's 63 degrees because it's Alabama and it's beautiful weather. And we started running. 45 miles in, he picked me up. We started running, and I'm like having a good time and joking. All of a sudden, the temperature gets a little lower, and then a lower, and then a lower, and then a lower, and pretty soon we're on the top of this mountain, and it's 26 degrees.
Yo.
And the wind is blowing at 30 miles an hour, and my hands are so cold I can't even hold a flashlight. And it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and literally every fiber of my being was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Why? I mean, like. You like, this is not normal.
Well, I got to tell you, every fiber of my being is thinking the same thing. What the fuck were you doing?
and here's what I knew. All the pain ends when I stop.
Yep.
All the pain will end. It's the second I stop. Now, I'm actually banged up still today, 3 or 4 days later. But the pain stops when you stop, right? But you can either stop at the finish line where you have glory, or you can stop right where you are and live with shame. And we have millions of salespeople who could be magnificent, but they live a life of shame, because at every turn when things get bad and the temperature drops and they're not sure they're going to make it, instead of taking the next step, they stop. And when things are bad, look, the only way to warm up, it's not to stop, baby. It's not to stop. It's to keep running. It's to keep pushing. It's to keep grinding through. That's the only way to get to the finish line, to keep moving. And so, look, it works for running, it works for life, it works for marriage, it works for just about any situation. Your situation's not going to improve by you stopping. It just means you're stuck right where where the pain is. So if you want to get past it, you got to push, you got to move. And so that's what I'm talking about with this long game, is knowing what you want and spend time to really soak that in. Most of us spend more time thinking about our football teams than we do about our future.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? I mean, right? So
yes.
What do you really want? For the first time, look, I'm always doing crazy. I'm investing in companies and doing different things. The first time ever, I said, look, I want to add this specific amount of money to my bank account by this time. First time I've ever done it in my career. I'm 40 years old. First time I ever said, I want this amount of money, right? This large 8-digit number. I want that in my personal bank account, not in my company's, in my bank account by this date. And it's something I think about often.
It's really great. Hey, can I take a minute and tell you a couple things I've learned from you today, Dan?
Absolutely.
So number one was, I love what you said, the 6 or 7 words that are on your phone right now. One is, oh shoot, I can't even see. One is ask questions. Number 2 is do things that matter. What was the first one?
Be honest.
Be honest. Right. Be honest, ask questions, do things that matter. Number 2, exactly. I love what you said, the pain stops when you stop. That's really big, and you're exactly right, and I have been in that situation before. And number 3, which kind of envelops all that stuff, is play the long game, right? You're doing this for, it's not just today, right? We're building stuff for the future for 20, 30 years, and know where you're trying to head. So, Dan, that's been super helpful. If somebody want to get in touch with you or get your book or anything else, where would they find you, Dan?
So if you actually want a copy of the book, I'll give you one for free. You could just go to freeedgybook.com, freeedgybook.com, and put your address in there, and one of our awesome ninjas will get a book sent out to you. But look, I'm on social media. If you Google me, Dan Waldschmidt, my email address is out there, my phone number is out there. Look, I always said this to people. Look, if you're committed to being awesome and you just need a little help, you need a little nudge, reach out. If you're someone who's satisfied with mediocrity and just wants some get-rich-quick scheme, you probably shouldn't call me. But otherwise, look, I want to help anybody who's mission-driven to change the world.
You are the man. I appreciate it, and I know that's true too. And I actually paid for your book. I jumped in on it early before you were giving away for free. So I'm happy about that. That's a good thing for me. No BS Sales Team, you've just listened to a champion and somebody who is a total badass and a winner share some of their secrets. I hope you will take note of this and make changes in your life based on it. Also, if you like this podcast, be sure and share it with other people. Rate it, review it. If you want to get in touch with me, you know where to find me, walker@walkermckay.com. I've got a quick video series that I'm giving away for free. That's www.7salesmistakes.com. Check that out too. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your listening, and we'll see you next week.